Hi, I'm Wayne Madsen, and you're listening to the Falcons Nest podcast.
I'm Lewis Reese, and you're listening to Falcons Nest podcast.
I'm Anuj Dal, and you're listening to the Falcons Nest podcast.
Well, Daryn, welcome to the Falcons Nest podcast. Good to have you on. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Busy. It's that time of the season where every day is a different ground, a different game, but it's exciting. It's it's why we do it. So you're not stuck behind a desk, which is very much more of a winter feel to it. But no, the summer is what we look forward to. You know, you work hard through the winter preparing the boys, and this is now the chance to go out there and have some fun.
I must say, you do have a very busy calendar, I presume. Like you said, different grounds, kind of all corners of the country, really, every single day with the different age groups through the academy.
Yeah, it is, but it's exciting. You know, that's what talent development's all about. You know, is, like I say, preparing the boys through the winter. Challenging them to explore, to try and get better every day, and then getting them to trust that process to then go out in the summer to go and put into practice what you've done through the winter. You know, there's nothing more disappointing for us as coaches when you work hard through the winter, through those dark, long, cold hours in the indoors. You know, and the boys are out there being positive and exploring options and, trying new things. And then you get out into the middle in the summer and you just don't see them go out and play with that same sort of confidence. So, very much around our messaging, to the boys is to go and trust that preparation. You know, as Mickey always says, you train hard in the winter to go and play easy in the summer.
I know you're a father yourself, but you must feel like a father to 50 plus kids. You have obviously your core group in the academy who you contract or technically contract in the winter, and then you've got all different boys through all the age groups trying to impress. It must be kind of a kind of very much almost a headache sometimes, I guess, for you.
A good headache in a way. I think there's times of the year where I'll probably see more of these boys than what I do see of my own boy. Which is also challenging, trying to balance, family life as well. But it's part of the job. I knew what I signed up for, and you don't get the reward without putting in the efforts. And that does take time. I think over the last couple of years, what we've seen is an abundance of players, and certainly the ability of those players is definitely getting better. I think the structures we've got in place from the younger age groups moving up is certainly starting to bear fruits now. And you look at the likes of the Harry Moores, the Jake Greens, some of our exciting young players who are at Bunbury trials at the moment. I think that's really a result of all of that hard work. And when it comes to selecting teams and selecting academy squads, when you've got such talented players, it's a good headache to have. And we're almost getting to a position now where we've got good enough players to go in and sign rookie contracts, but it's more a case of, does a small club with a small budget have place for those players? So, headaches is probably the right word, but they're good headaches in a way, rather than looking around going, where can we find a half decent player? So, I think we're in a good place.
Just for people who don't know, kind of an insight of how Derbyshire's cricket academy works. It's completely different to, say, football or rugby, where your squad through age groups would be 30 plus players. Just an insight in how kind of that process goes about in the winter.
Yeah, so I think every year varies. I don't think we've ever got a perfect sort of number that we have in mind to have on the academy. It's more about, have we got the quality of players? So, if I think 3 years ago we only had 5 players on the academy. The last 2 years we've had 10 and 11 players on the academy. So it just depends on the quality of players that we have coming through. We never want to put players on the academy just to tick a box and make up numbers. So it's more about, if we have 11, 12 players this year who we feel are of that standard, who can compete to play second team cricket and are potential professional cricketers down the line, then we'll put them on the academy, and it ebbs and flows, and in a couple of years time or next year we might only have 4 or 5 again, so it goes in cycles and phases, but yeah, I mean, the contact time that we have with those boys is vital. A lot of those boys are also at private school, whether it's Repton, Denston, etc. But it's contact time for me. If you differentiate your academy and your EPP programs between your county age group players, it's all about the contact time. In terms of the program that they're getting, the support they're getting, nutrition, psychologists, that's pretty much the same across the board, but it's just the amount of times we get to see them, the opportunities that we give them to really hone their skills, understand their game, and challenge them not just to develop, but also put those skills and those abilities under pressure. Because ultimately the winter phase it can be quite comfortable, and then when you get out into the middle in the summer, it's high pressure, it's high challenge. So we've got to try and recreate that in the summer as well. Through the winter as well. And that sometimes is the difference between your county age group program, where you've got more boys in there, as opposed to your winter program with your academy, where you've just got small numbers. You can really get into details, into the nitty gritty with them, high challenge, but also high support, and really prepare them for a challenging summer.
2 players that have flown through the academy, gone from your Nest into Mickey's senior squad, Harry Moore, Yusuf bin Naim, both been unlucky with injuries, picked up a couple of niggles, and probably, definitely in Harry's case, not played as much as he wanted to. But not only for you, kind of the proof in the pudding of the success, but for the younger lads, seeing 2 guys come through the system who they may know actually themselves, who may be good friends. It's got to be that's got to be the biggest motivation, really, surely. For the lads.
It is, and it's a conveyor belt. So if I look at the likes of Harry and Yusuf now, Harry and Yusuf were looking at Mitch Wagstaff and Archie Harrison before that, and those 2 were looking at Nick Potts, and over the last 5 years we've had 5 players graduate from the academy onto the professional ranks. And our current crop of players, your Jake Greens, Joe Hawkins, they're now looking, this year they're looking at the Harry Moores, the Yusuf bin Naims. Down the line, our boys at Bunbury at the moment are looking at the Jake Greens and the Joe Hawkins. So it's just that constant conveyor belt, and it is it's massively important, and it's motivating for them, because if our academy players feel like there's no opportunities and that the door's slammed in their face, there's not a lot of motivation or purpose in what we're doing. But if they've seen those opportunities, and our boys are getting games in the second team, they're getting the platform to go out there and showcase their skills in front of second team coaches. And Mickey was around yesterday all day watching the game here at the county ground. It's great for the boys. It just lifts their intensity, and it just motivates them, knowing that there's opportunities if they go out there and they perform well.
You've spoken about players who've had opportunities in the second team. You look around, teams may struggle to get out second teams, county sides. It would be made up of players who are kind of on a trial basis. But Derbyshire's second team this year has been really strong, Derbyshire to its roots. That's got to be pleasing for you, that the guys in the under-18s, under-17s are getting that opportunity. But then lower down, you've got those players challenging themselves and playing up age groups. It kind of just speeds that process of development on, playing against. You may never know, you may rock up to a game and you're playing against a seasoned pro who's got 500 first-class wickets, and it's serious game time there, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it was about 2018, possibly 2019, I arrived at Moseley for a second team game and ran into Chris Wokes, coming back from injury, getting ready, to go back into the England camp. So that certainly happens in second team cricket, and that's why it's vitally important for our best academy boys to be exposed to those sort of challenges, because generally your academy boys are the best in their peer group, and when they play in that peer group, they do sort of stand out. So are they being challenged at the same rate that you would expect them to be put under pressure? Probably not. But when they go into a second team environment and play against seasoned pros or an international cricketer, I think of that video of some poor kid on trial running into a Sussex team that had Jofra Archer, playing second team cricket bowling at 90 miles an hour. But it's great, in terms of benchmarking and seeing where you are in terms of your skill development, and your game. It's massively important. So it's great for all the boys. But I think what we can't have is a one size fits all approach. So if I look down the pathway, individually we have to look at each player and see where they are in terms of their development, their maturation. If they're bashing it out the park in their age group, can we push them up an age group or two? We've got Oscar Edwards at the moment, who's only under 15, who's been playing under 18s for us as well, and certainly doesn't look out of place, but it is more of a challenge for him than just going and dominating his age group. So it's just about finding that right balance for each individual, and that looks different for everyone across the board.
Look at Derbyshire's first team, that there's no hiding that the budgets are lower than other counties. Maybe the pull and the attraction isn't there as it would be for a test host nation. Or do you have kind of the same issues there? Do you have players that you'd like to, who you want to have in the academy, who may be pulled by the brighter lights of Lancashire, neighbours Nottinghamshire? Do you have that kind of issue as well?
Yeah, I think quite the opposite, if I'm honest. So over the last few years, we've had a lot of players coming to us from, geographically it does help us because we are quite central, but we've had a lot of players join us from Notts, a lot of players join us from Yorkshire, a few from Lancashire, a couple coming up from Birmingham and Worcester as well. And I know that we are central, but the feedback from a lot of them once they're in our program is, I don't want to talk down about any other programs, but this is just first-hand feedback, is the programs that we're running here are really excellent. The proof's in the pudding as well. And I think that word starts getting around the circuit as well, and people start talking, and, that positive sort of feedback and news spreads amongst the communities. And, our trials program, I think, that we run at the moment is very open to all. It's very inclusive, and again, the proof's in the pudding with some of the players that we've recruited over this year. It's, for me, it's about finding that balance. We want our teams to really reflect Derbyshire and the communities of Derbyshire, but also it's about going out there and winning games of cricket and giving opportunities to the best players. And sometimes you find that there's really good players at big counties who aren't getting opportunities, who by making the move to a smaller county like us, we're actually giving them that platform where they are better than 50% of the players that we have, and we can then allow them that opportunity and platform to go out and actually showcase their skills. And there's been numerous under-18s this year have been absolutely brilliant. The one downside though, and I think this is where maybe the ECB need to just have a look at the program, is that players can't play second team cricket unless they're heart screened. They've gone through full medicals, which is obviously an expense to the club. Now, our academy players go through that just as part of their program. So our academy boys are able to just at the drop of a hat be called in for a second team game. But we've got a couple of our boys who have come through our trials program, as a result aren't necessarily on our academy at the moment, and haven't been heart screened, who are certainly of the quality and the standard to be called in to play second team cricket. But because of the expense or the fact that they can't just be called in at short notice. So, again, if I think back to a few years ago where there were a massive pool of trialists, that pool is now diminished because of the fact that you have to be heart screened. And I'm sure there's medical reasons behind it, but from a purely cricketing point of view, it's just limiting opportunities, unfortunately.
It's a shame to hear that. I know that as well. You've got all that paperwork and rigmarole of the second team. You do look at there are quite a few players who have fallen by the wayside or been released, and I think I remember reading something maybe in Will Frayne or someone else that were very good pros, and it was almost at the point where you're having to travel here, there and everywhere. It's such an expense, not only for the player to trial, but then also the club going, well, if you're going to cost us X amount, we're just going to stick someone who is going to cost no money to the club. And it's kind of a shame that players, like you say, have got the ability to play but aren't being able to showcase their talent as much as the platforms there are available to them.
I think it is tough, and that is why we really want to try and hold on to our academy boys for as long as possible. And there's talk at the moment about extending the age from under 18s, moving it up to under 19s, possibly even under 21s, just to keep boys on the programs and within the system for as long as possible. Because if a player does leave our academy and isn't offered a rookie contract, he goes basically into the wilderness, where it's quite difficult, relative to what it used to be, to try and get back in to professional cricket. The entry routes are few and far between. There's some great programs, sort of, if I think of Ace and Saka, that sort of thing. But if you've got a young white guy who leaves the academy and isn't offered a pro contract, and doesn't have a platform like Ace or Saka to go onto, it can be really difficult. So I think the academy directors are all singing from the same hymn sheet at the moment in terms of trying to up that age, to retain boys for as long as possible. Because not everyone's a Harry Moore. Not everyone at 16 is playing county cricket. So for those later developers to try and keep them in the program for as long as possible, it just gives them that opportunity to fulfil their dreams. And it's important for small counties like us, to make sure that we are developing our own talent, bringing players through our program, because as you said earlier, it's hard to attract really good players when the bigger counties are throwing double the amount of money at them.
Yeah, like you said, it kind of, your development stages, you could identify someone at under 12s, under 13s that you think they're the next big deal. Maybe they don't develop, or they do develop, but then on the flip side, if you're letting people go at under 18s and they're out of contract, you never know kind of what they might have been like, because you see it, someone might be playing Derbyshire Prem cricket when they're released at 18 and just something might just spark and they just score runs and runs and runs. It just feels unlikely now, with the way the teams are set, that team director or heads of cricket build their team, they pull in their recruits over the winter, someone rips it up in club cricket. It seems less likely now than it did in the past of, if you'd done really well, you'd get that second team opportunity. If you scored runs in the second team, you have a contract. Like you said, that pathway is blocked, and there's the blocking, but also the late development or early development, that there are players that you've spent years with, close contact, and they just drop out the game and will never make it and realise their ambition of being a pro.
It's hard, and like you said earlier, I feel like a father to these boys. You over years you build relationships with them, and they're not just entities. They're human beings, and as much as what you try not to, you can't help but build relationships with them. And at the end of the year, when the boys leave the under 18s, you feel a bit sad, and I remember when Archie was released by the club, he phoned me and he was in absolute tears, and I got emotional about it, because you have a real love and affinity for these players, and you've been such a big part of their journey. And when Harry and Yusuf signed their first contracts, it was a really proud day. It really is. It's a roller coaster. It's the highs and lows, and you live it with the players. But in terms of development and a player's progression, it's never linear. Some players develop earlier, some develop later, and it's never the same from player to player. Every player's development path looks different. But I would definitely say it's harder now, with second team opportunities being blocked by having to have been hard screened to get back into it. So it just makes our job more important now, I think. Not that it wasn't important in the first place, but to make sure that we're giving our boys, whilst they're in the system, the best opportunities and platforms to go out there and showcase their skills.
I'm Anuj Dal, and you're listening to the Falcons Nest podcast. The Falcons are back this summer, and you can secure tickets at derbyshireccc.com.
I've spoken about it in the past that I think some people may expect that you just be able to churn out and generate an academy player every year that would be sprung into the first team and instantly do what Harry's done of being thrown in and not looking out of place. Reality is, you can't do that. It's not possible that you're going to have in every age group someone who is going to be able to play at one of the 18 first-class counties. Football-wise, academies. You've got 92 professional teams in the Football League. Yeah. Of course, that you're going to get numbers through the academies there, but there are pathways blocked. If you've got 2 wicket keepers and you've got a guy in the academy, they're probably not going to get an opportunity. But it's about road mapping, going, there's probably a guy under 14s that in 3 years' time, Mickey, he's yours. Yeah. So kind of, it is. Is it planning for maybe not in terms of we need a left arm spinner, so we're going to look for one. Is it more a case of talent identification early enough?
Yeah, it is. It's very much around talent ID. It is also from the top down. It is important, like my communication with Mickey. If he needs a left arm seamer, if that's the sort of hole in his squad, we put a lot of emphasis on going out and developing that. However, if you don't have left arm seamers, you can't turn a right arm seamer into a left arm seamer, or a left arm spinner into a left arm seamer. So you have to be able to work with what you've got. But our job as coaches Our job as coaches is to coach and get those players better, So they come to us as the rough diamonds, and it's our job to polish them. And that's where our coaching structures are really important, and having the right coaches in place. I think the comparison between what happens in football and cricket, they're worlds apart. It's apples and oranges, unfortunately. I mean, every kid at a young age is kicking a football. They love football. They're exposed to football on TV all the time. They're heroes. Cricket just isn't that. I mean, a lot of kids wouldn't know which end of a cricket bat to hold if you gave it to them. So again, we're facing a lot of challenges, but it's no use sitting around. I mean, Derbyshire face the same challenges as what a Worcester or a Lancashire would. It's the environments in which we now live in, unfortunately. So it's who can adapt the best. Who can make the most of what they have available to them. And I think we're doing that quite well at the moment.
On the flip side of kind of the challenge and pitfalls, you've got the glamorous and kind of the real highlight moments. At the time of this recording, the under-18s were playing at HQ at the county ground. I mean, for the lads to do that, it's a great experience, and then to play there and then win that comprehensively is just, I can't imagine what the dressing room and the boys must have been buzzing after that.
They were. I mean, they were certainly buzzing before it. I think, really grateful to Neil, the groundsman, to allow us to play here. Prior to the second team game against Yorkshire, and it was a bit of a long shot when I messaged him. I just thought, there's a pitch available. The second team are playing in the afternoon. Any chance we can jump on before that? Because it was a rained out game that we lost in York, so we needed to try and make it up. And he was quite willing, and the boys were really excited. I think there were some who were unavailable due to exams, who were bitterly disappointed not to be available. But the bonus was that we played really well. We got the points and took care of business, and we're nicely placed in the T20 competition now. But I think the chance to play on a county ground is motivating in itself. But we always say to our boys, whenever you pull on that Derbyshire shirt, whether you're playing at a club ground, whether you're playing against a school, or whether you're playing at the county ground against another county in an ECB comp, just the motivation to represent the Falcons should be the motivating factor. 2
standout performances with the ball. Hawkins and Abra really impressed. Joe Hawkins has taken a hat-trick a couple of weeks ago, and Bowles, I think there were quite a few people on the media floor very impressed with his control. He's obviously captain the side. Is he a player that there's been talk about maybe moving up?
Yeah, look, I mean, he's had a really good season for us at under-18s levels, but he's one of those now who's done it at that level. Now we need to challenge him at second team level, and he has played a few second team games this season, which has been great. However, with us having a larger squad this year, and obviously the white ball specialists coming into the team, the knock-on effect is that there's a lot of our first team players now playing in the twos over this period. So although Joe's been playing, he's been batting down the order, he's not necessarily been bowling a lot of overs, which is nobody's fault, it's just the circumstances. But what he does need to do is he needs to be batting up the order. He needs to be challenged by, bowling the important overs against, good professional batters. And then let's see, how he stands up to that challenge. But the opportunities he's had so far, he's done really nicely. I'm not sure if the club are too aware of this yet. It's only happened recently, but Joe's actually been selected for the England under-19 invitational team to play against England and India ahead of their under-19 series in a couple of weeks' time. At the back end of June. So I think that's just reward for his performances. His hat-trick up at York, his forfeit here at the county ground. That's all we want. And again, we spoke about academy players looking at their peers who have gone on to sign rookie contracts. This is the same. For players to see one of their peers being selected for England under-19s invitational team, it just knows that the scouts are watching, the selectors are watching, and if you're performing, there's opportunities, and that can come around very, very quickly. So again, very motivating for them. Well deserved for Joe. But just coming back to Abra, I mean, Abra has been a revelation for us. We call him Abracadabra, the magician. And
you have to. With a surname like that.
You have to, but I mean, the way he bowls, he can change a game. He smacks it like I've not seen a 17-year-old smack it before. Unfortunately, he doesn't have full sort of settled status in the UK yet. Well, I think he's settled, but he doesn't have a British passport, so we can't put him onto our academy. But he's only under 17, so he can certainly play for under 18s again next year. and I always laugh whenever he bowls. He always does well. But I think back to my first conversation with him in our nets, and he said to me, "No, coach," in his broken English, he said, "Coach, I'm a part-time spinner. I don't really bowl." And I said to him, "Abrad, you do bowl now, and you're going to be a frontline spinner for us." And he's been absolutely fantastic. And I mean, he had a run out yesterday. He's superb in the field. He's just a really exciting all-round cricketer, and a great find for us.
Kind of jumping on from Joe Hawkins' selection for the England under-19s team, Bunbury coming up. I know that there's a decent Derbyshire influence, or Tom Poynton spoke about it. I've not caught up with you, kind of how the selection's going there, but I presume still looking like it'll be strong.
Yeah, so we had 5 players nominated for Bunbury this year, which is unheard of. Well, certainly from our point of view. In the past, I think we've had a maximum of 2 players nominated, but it's probably just reflective of how strong that under-15 age group is this year for us. They've had 2 observation days so far. All 5 of the players have done really nicely in stages. I think 3 of them, I don't want to mention names just yet, but I think 3 of them are likely to make that final Midlands team. But there are still two sessions to go. So the players finish well and perform well, and ultimately you're on trial, and it's a case of going out there and doing it under pressure. At an observation day when you are on trial, it's not necessarily just about. I think about like a Theo Brown, for example, who got 150 for our under 14s team 2 weeks ago against Lancashire. Absolutely brilliant, but he's not necessarily gone and shown that same command of his game throughout the observation days. So, whether the coaches decide to select him based on what he's done at county level or based on what he's done at those observation days will yet to be seen. But that's the nature of performance sport and what we do here. It's about doing it when it counts. But no, it's a really exciting group of players, and I think we'll be well represented once that Bunbury Festival takes place at Loughborough later in the summer.
You've brought my final point I wanted to come on to of standout performances in the academy. I was having a trawl through, and I was going to mention Theo Brown's century. It looked like he'd kind of just taken Lancashire apart. Are there any other, to put you on the spot?
Yeah, you are putting me on the spot.
Trawling through probably lots of games this season.
Yeah.
Kind of either performances or team performances or wins that you've kind of gone, yes, boys, that's really meant more, or dug ourselves out of a hole, or one of those that you're like, yes.
Yeah. Look, I mean that innings of Theo. Look, just to touch on that, I was at that game at Clifton, because it's my home club just down the road, and it was a good wicket, fast outfield, small boundaries, which probably sums Clifton up actually, and we got bashed around the park a little bit, and Lancashire hit us for 280. One of their batters was struggling a little bit with illness, and when they were 9 wickets down, they chose not to send him back in to bat. He was actually okay, but I think they thought 280. It's only Derbyshire. We don't need to send our batter back in. And Theo said, hold my beer. Not literally, obviously, he's 14, but he just said, right, here we go, leave it to me, boys. And went and smashed him around the park, and we chased down 280, and I think it was 28 overs or something ridiculous. It was a phenomenal innings, and it just showed his class. But from a development point of view, that's exactly what we want to see from players, because Theo is under 14s but plays most of his cricket under 15s, and that's obviously to challenge him. But the message is, when you go back to your peer group, to your age group that you are in, is to go and dominate. Because sometimes that actually puts more pressure on a player than playing up an age group, where, while it's a bonus if I perform, actually when you go there and you're the main player, there's more pressure on you to actually go and do it. And he did it brilliantly. He really did. So he's an exciting talent. We had some really good performances. I know you've touched on Joe Hawkins' hat-trick. You don't see many hat-tricks these days, but especially not in T20 cricket. And it was all dismissed by Joe Hall behind the stumps. So 2 stumpings and a catch behind. So I'd say most hat tricks, that's quite rare to get that too. In that same week, Rohan Valabanani, who's joined us from Staffs, a phenomenal 90 off about 40 balls. Absolutely ridiculous the way he played in that run chase against Durham, which got us over the line. And then another standout 100 from Joe Hall, again, who's been our keeper in the under-18s, who's joined us from Yorkshire, who's been terrific for us. Got 100 at Spondon against Yorkshire, which I think was really special for him, because he was always surplus to requirements, to put it in the nicest possible way, at Yorkshire. So we've given him the platform, the opportunities to really go out there and showcase his skills. And I think for him to go and do it against Spondon, he smashed 100. I think it was about 38 balls in a T20 against Yorkshire. I mean, albeit small boundaries and that, but the way he played was excellent. And what was so impressive with that was when he walked into bat, Harrison Parker was going well, and all he did was he got Harrison back on strike and played the situation well. And then Harrison got out, and Joe Hall just went through the gears terrifically and got one of the best T20 hundreds I've seen from an under-18. So, yeah, I mean, again, on the spot, off the top of my head, those are a few of the standouts, but there's been a lot, and it's great because, again, you see the boys go through all the hard work in the winter, and to then go out there and get the reward of these good performances in the summer is great for us to see as coaches.
Thank you for joining me. I know there's been a lot of cricket in the academy, but there's still a lot more to come, so hopefully we'll have another catch-up and be talking about many more 100 and hat tricks later this season.
Excellent. Cheers, Henry. Thank you.